Zimmer said that the Lions are good at screen.
Stop the cap. Stop the cap.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are here with the first injury report of the week for the Lions and for the Vikings. Lions got another divisional opponent this week, this time at home. Remember, our first three divisional games were on the road. Now they're at home. Back-to-back divisional games. This week we got the Vikings, the team that we should have beat the first time around. It was a crazy finish. You guys remember that? They fumbled, and then we scored. We got the 2-point conversion.
Campbell's going for the win. Goff takes the snap, sets deep in the pocket, looks, throws, back of the end zone.
Yes, sir.
Caught! Kadero Hodge!
Yes, sir.
2-point conversion, and the Lions have got the lead. Lions 17, Vikings 16, 37 seconds left.
But then they got a field goal at the end of the game. I guess it was like the season long. Anyway, the Lions got the Vikings this week, who are coming off a tough loss to the San Francisco 49ers. And the injury reports are here. It's hashtag Vikings week. So let's get it started.
The city's been down, and it found a way to get up. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. We're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome, everybody, to our video. Glad you guys are here. Now, I have a plan for this week. I think we may mix this week up a little bit. Here's what I'm thinking. I may drop a video where we take a look at the Vikings film, but the format the plan is to make it a little bit different, all right? I got some ideas swirling around, so if that drops, it could be tonight, it could be tomorrow, it could be Friday. May not drop at all. If I do it, I'm like, this is trash, I may not even do it. But it's possible that it drops, okay? So stay tuned for that. We also may have some big announcements coming, so stay tuned for that as well, as we have some behind-the-scenes plans that we're working on. But today begins Vikings week. It's time to dive into this injury report. Now, the Vikings have a weird week like we do coming up because they play on Sunday and they play on Thursday. They got to travel to Pittsburgh, so that's part of the reason that they held a walkthrough today in practice. Notes already here. Y'all see I got a new notebook, man. I'm so excited. It's weird. I get really excited when I write on a new notebook. I don't know about y'all, but like if you get a new notebook and a new pen, and that, you know, when you start writing, and just the darkness that comes out of the pen. If you know what I mean, you know. Like the ink, it's just different. And you got all these clean pages, and you're like, oh, it's like, sorry. All right, let's dive into this Vikings injury report, okay? Start off at the bottom left with their injury reserved and really take a look at this defensive line because a lot of their starting defensive linemen are out right now. You start off with Danielle Hunter, a big name on there. We all know the defensive end. He's out for the season with a torn pec. That just sounds awful, so I just, wanted to start there. He's out for the season. Also, Everson Griffin, defensive line. A lot of the starting defensive line is out right now, actually, but they could be getting a few guys back this week, which they're really hoping for, as they struggled a little bit recently against the run. 49ers, 208 rushing yards. Now, 49ers run well, but I'm just saying that's a lot of rushing yards, and that's kind of where we've been going towards the end of the season with a lot of teams around the league. But Everson Griffin, there was kind of a mental health issue there. He's had this kind of thing happen in the past. I know Spielman drove over, I think, to his house. He was texting players. He had this video out there that someone was after him. It was a lot of craziness there. I'm just hoping everything's okay with Everson Griffin. I know he's on the reserved list right now, but that's a very scary situation with Everson Griffin. Other big names, Delvin Tomlinson. He's on the COVID list right now, but they're hoping to get him back for tomorrow. They need help against the run. Tomlinson was one of their big additions to this defensive line, which is really what this team has been known for a while. I mean, last year they really struggled defensively, which is like a weird year, but they missed some players because Pierce opted out. Michael Pierce is another. Pierce will get out there today. He is beginning his 21-day period back from IR, so they're hoping that they can both be ready to play this weekend. So they're missing some big names on the D-line. They would love to have some of those guys back. And they're thinking that possibly Delvin Tomlinson and Michael Pierce could be back this weekend, which would be a just huge addition for them, knowing that they're missing some pieces already and that they struggled a little bit on that area, which is really what this defense is known for, right? When you think of the Vikings, all right? And then you can continue to see other names there like Irv Smith Jr. and things like that. But let's move on to their injury report. Let's start off at the top. We have Mackenzie Alexander, the slot cornerback. He only played like 20% of the snaps last week, but before last week, played a lot more defensively. He's dealing with a rib injury, so he was designated with limited participation. Again, keep in mind it's a walkthrough, so we'll just have to keep an eye on how that progresses really into tomorrow. Anthony Barr, green dot, the linebacker, he holds it down. Knee/hamstring injury, did not participate today. Didn't really get much of an update aside from they're hopeful that he'll be good to go this Sunday. That's the only update I heard. I think that's the only thing Mike Zimmer said. Like he gives some good answers, but then when you ask about players' injury, they're very short answers. So that's not much of an update for Anthony Barr. We'll just kind of wait and see, but he did not participate today. Bashaud Breeland, all right, the former Chiefs, the cornerback, he was under some heat to begin this season. If you guys can remember, we discussed him the first time around. I think he's been better since then. Like, I mean, statistically at least, his stats definitely look better. From what I can remember, it was when we looked, back in week 4, week 5. Either way, dealing with a groin injury, who's listed with limited participation. They would like to have him because another guy that's on this COVID list is Patrick Peterson. That's a big name as well. So they would like to have Bashaud Breeland this weekend. Cameron Bynum, he's went from cornerback to safety. So he's actually technically, I guess, a safety now. He filled in 2 games when Harrison Smith was down. He played pretty darn well. If you look at the stats alone, he allowed like a 16 pass rating, 3 for 6 completions. He did pretty well in that regard, because for 2 straight weeks he played 100% of their defensive snaps when Harrison Smith was out. So they transitioned him to that role, which I guess makes sense. Remember, he come out of the draft, I know he's pretty long and I know he's pretty physical, so I guess I could see how that could work with Cameron Bynum. Ryan Connolly, I hope I'm saying the dude's name right, the linebacker, quadriceps, did not participate. That's just a depth linebacker. I don't think he hasn't played a single defensive snap for them this season, but who knows, maybe he'll have to if they miss some linebackers this game. Here's a big one though, it's Delvin Cook. All right, so we're dealing with an injury at running back, and so are they. Delvin Cook, he's dealing with a shoulder injury that actually took place against the San Francisco 49ers. It's been reported that he's expected to miss 2 weeks for the Vikings, so I don't expect him to hit IR. So we'll just kind of see where it goes, but he's also not expected to play this weekend. Alexander Madison, who will be the top guy while he's out. They know they have Kene as their backup, who they want to mix in a little bit. He's mainly their returner, but they would like to mix him in a little bit in, the run game. Actually, they want him. They know that he wants to try to be involved offensively, so kind of a speedster at running back that they may get involved a little bit. Plus, here's some news. Now, I haven't heard they signed him or anything, but they did apparently try out Kerryon Johnson. All right, so you need running back help. They tried out Kerryon Johnson, the former Lion, and I haven't gotten any news further than that, but we'll just see. Because, hey, I know they had Amir Abdullah, so maybe they get Kerryon to play versus us. I don't know if that's going to happen, but clearly they need running back depth, and they know that he's probably going to miss a few weeks. He's very likely to miss this week, so we'll see if there's any news with that. They do have a running back on the practice squad as well. Christian Darrisaw, their starting left tackle, a rookie this season, dealing with an ankle injury, did not participate. Not much, again, of an update here. It's just kind of up in the air, it seems like right now, whether or not he will play. He's seemingly had a solid rookie season without going and watching all their film. I'll have to check it out for an upcoming video. But backup Rashad Hill apparently hasn't played as well when you look at the statistical side of things. So that'll be a big one to keep an eye on as well. First round pick there. Eric Kendricks, the guy literally has played 100% of the defensive plays this year. 100%. He's played every play and he's been involved everywhere. The guy's got over 100 tackles already. His coverage has been solid. It's actually been, in terms of pass rating, worse than the past few years, but he still has 2 interceptions. He's allowed 3 touchdowns. I mean, he's done pretty much everything for this Vikings defense, okay? But he's limited participation with an arm injury. Sheldon Richardson, one of the defensive tackles here who can get pressure. We know he could do that back when he was with Cleveland. He's got 13 pressures this season, limited knee injury. Nick Vigil, who has stepped in and taken the green dot role over when there has been no Anthony Barr. He's dealing with limited participation. You finish off with Armand Watts, who has been another guy that's filled in a little bit with some of the guys that they've been missing on their defensive line. Lions announced some of their roster moves today, one of those being Deshaun Hand, who has been waived on an injury settlement. We talked about that yesterday. They have also released Darren Paulo, the offensive tackle, off of the practice squad, and maybe that means good things about Dan Skipper. Also have signed Curtis Bolton to their practice squad, or Buzz Bolton. I guess his nickname is Buzz Bolton, from Oklahoma, who didn't really play a ton up until his final year with Oklahoma, where he just racked up stats. He had 139 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, 2 pass breakups, all over the place. Curtis Bolton seems like one of those guys that you probably should not just overlook as, hey, it's just a practice squad addition. Now, I'm not going to get into it a ton in this video, plus there's a lot more film that I need to watch, but from the things that I've read, from the little bit that I've seen, he seems like a player that could kind of surprise us out of nowhere and possibly at some point get some snaps. Path here is pretty darn interesting. So like I said, Oklahoma, he was a special teams ace. He kind of worked his way up. I mean, he wasn't a super high recruit coming out of high school. He worked his way up, got his opportunity, beat a 5-star out for the linebacker job, played outside linebacker. But with Oklahoma, he's got an interesting skill set from what I've seen. He's a pass rushing specialist that, especially on passing downs, can be a problem. He's a great blitzer. While he's not the biggest guy, he has pass rush moves. He's one of the most effective blitzers that they've had, and you can see it in the stats, but advanced stats, they kind of just throw it back at you. This is a guy that can get after the quarterback, and that's how Oklahoma was able to use him, as a guy that could get after the passer on those passing downs. Goes for a football. He's a guy that has a very high run stop rate. Now, because of his size, he doesn't do a great job of shedding blocks, getting off of blockers, so he's not super good at, using his hands to get off of blockers. So for him, a 3-4 defense in the inside, he could have some issues in there, so I would expect him to be on the field and maybe some of those like 4-2-5 looks, maybe when you have some more bigger bodies, or if it's an obvious pass down. He's not super athletic, which you would kind of hope for his size. You would hope like, man, he's like running a 4.45 40, something like that. He's not like on that end of it, but he is athletic enough where in space you can utilize him as a weak side linebacker. We saw the coverage play that he made against us when he had an interception for the Colts on David Blau. Like, this is a player, man, that you probably shouldn't count out. I mean, he went from, being a player that probably wasn't going to make the Packers roster to all of a sudden getting first team reps. And if it wasn't for an ACL injury, he may have made that team. Also back in college with Oklahoma, he had an injury in his junior year, a shoulder injury. That probably took him out of a lot of reps. So he missed a lot there, and that's why we really didn't get to see him until his senior season. So first off, I hope that Jalen Reese-Maybin is okay, because it seems like a very similar addition to a guy like Jalen Reese-Maybin, similar kind of style from what I'm hearing. So I'm hoping Jalen's okay, but at the same time, this is a guy that I probably wouldn't just simply overlook. Not to say that he's going to be taking someone's job or something like that. I haven't dove into it enough, but it just sounds like from what I've seen that, maybe just keep an eye on this. Injury report for the Lions. As you can see, there is no more Deshaun Hand on this injury reserve. I had to update this a little bit. I had a little off. You can see a new addition, AJ Parkinson's list. This was about a week ago that they put him on here. Cephas is on here. I didn't realize I never had Cephas' name typed on here, so I had to fix that. But we know kind of what the Lions injury reserve looks like. That's what it is in the bottom left. But now let's move on to Wednesday's injury report, which I'm pretty sure was a lighter date today as well, but they didn't say specifically that it was a walkthrough. So let's dive into it. Starting on the top, Trey Flowers, outside linebacker, knee injury. This is a guy that Mike Zimmer specifically said was a real good pass rusher, but we've missed him the last 2 weeks. Clearly, all right, the Lions have done some different things schematically, but we have missed him in terms of some of the pass rush he can give to the Detroit Lions. And again, no participation today with that knee injury. This would be, I think, his third straight game out if he doesn't play this week. Maybe fourth. I think it's third, but it could be fourth. Either way, I hope he gets Trey Flowers back this season. I don't know how long or how many games we're going to see him in a Lions uniform, for the rest of, his career, to be honest with you. But I would like to see him back out there just to give us some more help. We could use Trey Flowers. Daryl Hodge, receiver dealing with an illness, did not participate today. We haven't seen much of Daryl Hodge with the new addition of Josh Reynolds, and you have Trinity Benson, but it is still some depth. But really where we've seen him is actually on the punt coverage, where, again, Mike Zimmer credited the Lions and said they have a great special teams. They got 6 really good special teams players. Now, he had this weird little name for it, and I have no idea what it means. I can't remember what he said. I'm not even going to say what he said because I don't know if it's, appropriate, so I'm not even going to say it. But I can say this. Daryl Hodge has been on special teams, and we do have a pretty good special team, especially in coverage. But we could do a better job of, catching the ball on points. And I know Hodge will get pointed to a little bit for that. I'm not trying to go off on Hodge or anything. I'm just saying we've had some issues covering the punts, actually catching the ball or downing it inside the 10 or the 5. But he's dealing with an illness, so hopefully he gets better. You know the drill. We know the drill, right? Okay, get the blank. Hey, okay, y'all know. Bobby Price, cornerback. I think this is the first time we've seen him on here with the shoulder injury. Did not participate. Again, he's another special teams guy. It's actually been pretty darn good on special teams. Cornerback wasn't the greatest, but special teams, he's been pretty good. Now, cornerback was probably just a little early for him to go to safety to cornerback. It was a big transition. It's a big transition. However, no participation today. We'll keep an eye on it. Jalen Reese-Maybin, JRN. Oh, man, I like me some Jalen Reese-Maybin, especially after last week, okay? Well, he went down with an injury, and we actually saw at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, we saw Woods step in for him. He was kind of in and out of last week's game against the Bears, but he played well when he was out there, if you ask me. Shoulder injury, that's what he was dealing with, and he did not participate today. That'll be one I definitely keep an eye on, definitely, and maybe that's part of the reason that the Lions signed Curtis Bolton to the practice squad, is that if they need that linebacker depth, they can bring him up. Because so the offensive tackle illness, just like Daryl Hodge, I don't know what they're dealing with, but he did not participate today either. Very good run blocker. He showed us that week. He was fantastic run blocking. Now, speed rush still gives him some problems, but I think he's definitely been better on the right side. And a lot of people thought that he would after seeing him in the preseason, but did not participate today. So I hope, hopefully he's good. Usually with illness, we see the next day they return, they're full, and they're good to go. Good thing is that it's early in the week, so they have some time to recover. DeAndre Swift, he's expected to be out this week. It's been reported that Swift could miss multiple weeks for the Lions, but he's not expected to play this week, and they're not counting him out yet, but he didn't participate with a shoulder injury. He went down against the Bears as well. Dan Cable said the good news is we got Jamal Williams, and we expect to see a lot of Jamal Williams and feed Jamal Williams, but he did say Jamar Jefferson and Godwin would be involved offensively. A lot of Jamal Williams. Personally, I would like to see a little bit more Jamar Jefferson. That's just me. That's just me. But again, DeAndre Swift is probably not going to be playing this week, which is a big loss. I mean, even Mike Zimmer brought it up, and he's like, man, Swift is a really good player. And it's like, well, yeah, but he may not play this weekend. All right, continue down. Trinity Benson, we've seen him for the last couple of weeks. He's actually missed the last 2 games. He was actually brought up today when they talked to Antoine Randall L., the receiver coach, and he's dealing with a knee injury, limited participation. Antoine Randall L. said, yeah, it hasn't translated to the games yet, what we're seeing in practice. He said it's going to happen. It just has not translated yet. the type of playmaking that he's been having in practice to the game day. So they're still optimistic with Trinity Benson, at least Antoine Randall Ellis being the receivers coach. He just said that it hasn't translated yet. Plus, he's missed the last 2 games, and hopefully he doesn't miss his 3rd one. But limited, so I guess that's good news for Benson. I would say that's progression. Michael Brockers, defensive lineman dealing with the knee injury, limited today. I think, he didn't show up as much last week. I mean, he still made some plays because that's what he does, but he didn't show up as much last week. I'm glad he played last week, and I hope he's healthy enough to play this week. Matt Nelson, here's good news. He's improved to limited participation. He didn't play last couple weeks either, but now here he is limited with the ankle injury, and he could be back this week. That would be great. That'd be fantastic to have this guy back. Last week, promote guard Parker off of our practice squad for depth purposes so we could have 8 offensive linemen that were active because we were missing Big V, we were missing Matt Nelson, we were missing some bodies along the offensive line. We already know about a couple of the other guys that were missing, so Matt Nelson could be in return this week, which would be great, and that's also probably part of the reason that they were able to release a guy like Darren Paulo. Big V, good news here, full participation. He didn't play last week, and Kramer struggled a little bit at guard. I'm not gonna lie, he struggled a little bit, but it was his first, start, but he did struggle a little bit, but so it would be nice to have Halapoulivaati, ejected. Halapoulivaati, Vaitai. There we go, I said it. You know how I knew that? Because I listened to another guy say it, and I was like, you know what? I think I got this. Halapoulivaati, Vaitai. I probably still messed it up. But either way, concussion, full participation. Great news. Absolutely great news. Hopefully he's back this week. So some good, some bad on here. I'm really watching the Trey Flowers. Want to see if that gets better. I'd love to have Trey Flowers back this week. And the Jalen Reed's maybe the one sticks out for sure. And then, of course, the illness. Hopefully those guys can get better. But now let's talk about what some of these coaches had to say with some of their presses today. Asked Dan Campbell about his play calling and where he feels like he could be better and, what he's learning. He brought up a couple of actually specific plays that he felt like he could have been better on. He brought up the 3rd and 32 play where he ran the draw. And he said, it's not even that I just ran it, but he didn't like the play that he called. Now, he didn't say anything about the play before, which was the dang screen that lost like 5 yards. Now, a lot of this was set up by the flags, but the screen was also terrible. But he said, I probably should have just did a pass play, try to be more aggressive. We could pick it up, great. If it's not there, we check it down, and maybe we can get in the field goal range and potentially have a shot at it. But he did the draw. There were some boos. You could hear the boo birds coming down as soon as he handed that thing off on 3rd and 32 from, I think, our own 49, our own 48. Zimmer said that the Lions are good at screens.
Stop the cap. Stop the cap.
Run a lot of screens. Like, if that's what he meant, hey, they like screens, I think that's what he meant. They like screens more than they're good at screens. Speaking of screens, he also brought up the play to Trinity Benson, which was a quick wide receiver screen that we threw when we were on the left hash. And Dan Campbell said if you could take that back, he would probably have ran it on the other side. At the field. I think that's what he was saying, because it could have picked up an extra couple of yards, maybe because of how the field is. He tried to run it to the wide side of the field, so that's another thing that he looks back on and, wish he would have done the other way. He said a guy that's helped him is Ben Johnson, the tight end coach. He's been much more involved in the passing offense for the Lions, and Anthony Lindy's still holding the run game responsibilities, the pass protection. Ben Johnson's been doing more in the passing game, as Dan Campbell has been calling plays. Okay, so that's an interesting little nugget there, interesting little update. Now, Goff did point out that this was really the first real game plan that him and Campbell have had together. First game that it was Dan Campbell's game plan with Jared Goff, it was, all hindered because Jared Goff was dealing with an injury, and Campbell even admitted that it changed their game plan. Next week with Tim Boyle, so that was completely different. So the last one against the Bears, really the first game plan that they did together. And Goff said that when Dan Campbell's talking to him, when he's telling the plays, he's very calm, he's relaxed, and you never know, because Campbell, he's hype. But he said he's very calm when he's talking to you as a play caller, which is nice as a quarterback.
I put in a great game plan. I mean, these players, they're horrible. My players are no good. I mean, people's like, no excuses. I got 22 excuses, 11 on my offense and 11 on my defense. Our offensive coordinator is terrible. He gets half of his plays off of Madden, rookie mode. I mean, the guy is no good. In our offensive line, everybody threw. Do we have a chance next week? No, we don't. We're 0-8.
But he's right, that it really is their first game as game planning. And I thought there was really some good to take away. We did the film yesterday, and I was like, oh, I like this, I like that. Didn't like it all, but there were things that I liked offensively. And obviously, Goff only had 4 incompletions. And actually, Mike Zimmer stopped somebody when they said he may have played his best game of the season against the Bears. And he's like, I actually think he played really well against the Rams. In the Rams, he threw the interception, but he played well in that game. And he's also been dinged up, so he's been, a little bit hobbled offensively. So, okay, Mike Zimmer throwing a little bit of praise. We see you, Mike. Now, Dan Campbell addressed kind of the elephant. Learning to win. The Lions got to find a way to learn to win football games. And I think he quoted like Bill Parcells when he gave this answer. But basically, the thing was, we have to make that play to avoid that penalty. It's really tough to do it until you do it in a game situation, until you basically do it once. It's kind of like, I don't really know how you would explain it. It's like one of those things where like you do it, and then every time it's just kind of easier after that because now you've done it. You've already gotten there, right? It's just, it's that barrier. It can be a mental barrier, a mental block in your way. But as soon as you do it, once you do it one time, it's way easier because now you have the confidence, you know how to do it, you know how to win football games, and that's what Campbell is saying. So hopefully that happens. I mean, we talked about this right after initial reactions of that Bears game. It's like, man, we got to learn how to close these games. And that's what he's saying here. So hopefully that's the case. I feel like that's a thing. I can't think of a specific example. Touch the rim for basketball. Like, when you first touch it, every time after that's so much easier because you're like, oh, it's gonna. You believe that you're gonna touch it every time. The before then you're like, oh, I can't even. I'm just smacking the net, and you're like, this is dumb. Why do I keep trying? But once you do it one time, it's just way easier to keep repeating because you don't have to think about it. You just know you're gonna do it again. It's one of those things. Mentally, you do have to get past that challenged young, coaching staff, a lot of these players. And once you haven't found one and you're on this losing path, you can't get numb to it. But at the same time, you got to get it once that we can be like, all right, we got this. It's going to be different every time, but at the end of the day, it's about finishing, closing. And really, since the beginning of the season, we've been doing the opposite. Like I said, we've had like 5 or 6 games that could have went the other direction if we could have made one play or avoided one play, not had one mistake or a couple of flags, something like that. We could have won many of these games this season. So a lot of teams keep saying we're not looking at the record because you can't really look at our record. I even know the Vikings said on one of their videos, like, the Lions are like a lot of bad teams. They have just beat themselves, like a lot. Like the Vikings have a little bit as well. And that's facts. Mike Zimmer gave the Lions some praise when he talked about the Lions. I don't think I've heard another coach do it like this. He was like, look, they're very good at running the football. They're very good at double team blocks, pulling guys, guards, tackles. He said they're good on screens, and that's the one where I was like, oh, okay, you're lying. He also said they're good at play action shots, setting it up. I think a lot of this is because, he brought up the offensive line specifically. It's better now. It's better. If we get Big V back, pair that with Matt Nelson back, we can get some of those 6-up man offensive line sets back. I'm excited to see this week, and I am because you're indoors again. We know, look, Kirk Cousins plays well indoors. He's lit us up in Ford Field. Yes, he's lit us up. He scored a lot of points in Ford Field with the play action. One thing Mike Zimmer did say about not having Dalvin Cook is that he's seen on film a lot of teams are playing way more shell coverage, 2 safeties back because they're not as worried about necessarily the run game. And that's a very big benefit for you defensively if you can do that. He praised the Lions defensively for disguising it. This is something that we talked about coming into the season, disguise of safeties. They can sit in this 2-shell look, and then as soon as the play starts, they can break out of it. And you don't really know what's coming because they're disguising the back-end play with their safeties. Now, that has led to some issues, communication issues, things like that. But at the same time, it can disguise coverage and make it really tough for a quarterback to, pick apart or for an offense to read pre-snap. Excited to see this week. Could this be the week that the Lions hit 20 points? I mean, I think it could. I definitely think this could be the week Lions hit 20 points. If we don't have 10 penalties, definitely think it could happen. Speaking of penalties, Mike Zimmer was heated last week about penalties. He's like, man, they hold all the time. The officials being a big part of the game. I don't like to do that. I don't like that being a big factor. I'd rather just watch the teams play. So maybe this is the week that we hit 20 points. Hopefully that's the case. In our run defense, he said that was good. And of course, like I said, disguising coverage. Now, speaking of run defense, Todd Walsh talked about our defensive line and some of the pressure in the run defense. He said part of the reason we're doing better against the run is we changed things up a little bit schematically. We're playing a little bit more 4-3 defensively. Now, I think we really saw that against Pittsburgh. A lot of that had to do some of it because we were missing some outside linebackers and we had Deshaun Hand back. So we played a lot more 4-3 looks. I don't think we played as much well, I guess, I don't know. You played four-man front. So it's however you want to look at it, right? We had more outside linebackers playing in that game. We played a lot more four-man front. So I guess I'll say that, some 4-2-5. We mixed it up like crazy because we just used a lot more outside linebackers last week. And I'm sure that'll continue to change based on the personnel you had. It's just like Todd Walsh said. But he said one big difference is defensive line-wise, we're now shading our defensive line to help against the run. It puts you into a gap, and it makes it much easier for a defensive lineman to read the offensive lineman. So it's way easier to get into the gap, stop the run. However, it's harder to disguise things with your defensive line when you're shading. So when you're shading, to an inside or an outside shoulder of an offensive lineman. That's what Todd Walsh said that they've been doing recently to help against the run. And I think I definitely saw that watching it back in just a little bit and like kind of looking out for them. I was like, okay, I can see what he's saying. They are shading, against the offensive line on the defensive line a lot. And he said, now pass rush, that's the area I got to be better. Because, I think early in the season, we were caught up in how many mobile quarterbacks we were facing, so we had to be prepared to just take away the run lanes, and we need to give them more calls and just pin their ears back and go. Like, I like Aleem. Pennicini is really good. He was not healthy last season. He's way better this season. You cannot move that guy. It's just unfortunate for him that we have a lean, but he's like, there was teams coming near that would have loved that at Penasini. He's a starting level nose guard. I'd love to hear that. I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. That's great news when you have 2 young guys like that. But he said with Levi's flashing. He just needs to show us more consistency. And I think we really saw him flash last week. There was a couple plays where you just see how dominant he is. It's something that we knew coming out of the draft was kind of an issue, is he's had ups and down moments, but we know what he is when he's playing at a high level, when it's a good rep, he's ridiculous. He's just running over guys. We've seen both. He hasn't seen the field a ton, and maybe we'll see more of the field for some of these guys. But he did talk about some of the schematic changes, so keep an eye out for that. See if the Lions gives more pass rush the next couple of weeks, depending if they change things up a little bit, knowing that Kirk's not super mobile. I don't know. Maybe they'll change it up a little bit. But the run defense, he did attribute some of that to just the way that they're playing, technically, just with shading defensive linemen. Really all I got for today's injury report. We'll be back. Maybe not today because of just time constraints, but maybe tomorrow. And, of course, the injury report once again. And I'm thinking about doing a cool little film video for the Vikings. Less shorter, more condensed, but also informative. You know what I'm saying? Like, just a little bit less than what we usually do, but also still get some info. Like, just make it kind of fun, interactive. We'll see if we do that this week. I think that'd be pretty cool. And, like I said, injury report tonight. If I don't do a video tonight, we probably will be live taking a look at that North Carolina-Michigan game, which is on ESPN. So I'm excited for that game. But until then, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like, just the thoughts of things and other things and thoughts and things. Keep an eye out for some updates. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.